The actual difference. The actual difference between college and prison is about 2 feet. Because they sat next to each other in the seventh grade, and the jailbird actually sang a sweeter song than the peacock. But we, as a system, we showcase our peacocks, and we make them the heroes and icons of beauty, while we paint stripes on the jailbird, just because they sat in the other chair. Neither bird can fly on their own, but because of beauty, we never require the peacock to try to fly, nor do we allow the jailbird a chance to fly. His wings are clipped at birth. Although we invest in the education of the peacock, we spend more money on the education of the jailbird. As our societal scapegoat, he eats everything and comes out of school with more knowledge, less information, and fewer opportunities. Both calls are long distance, and both calls are collect. However, the jailbird in his call is seeking wisdom, while the peacock is seeking a dollar sign. Nevertheless, we love them both, and we knew they would reach our goals for them. We were so sure that we packed their bags for the trips on the day we first sent them to kindergarten. The actual difference between the jailbird and the peacock is sometimes set in motion long before they have an opportunity to fly. Caleb, what's happening, man?
Oh man, making it, man. How's it going?
Good. Let me just kind of frame this, man. Folks, it's good to have you this week on our episode of What Black Dads Think, but we're going a little different direction. Sometimes dad means your biological children, but sometimes dad also means those who just come in your life and you adopt them and they adopt you. And so today we're going to have a conversation with one of my former students, who I would consider one of my sons, nephews, however you want to do that. But we just want to talk to him about some things that are pretty serious in his life, but also pretty serious in our community. But his name is Caleb Harris III. I've been knowing Caleb since he was in the seventh grade, Horseman Junior High School. He was in my math and science class. But Caleb, man, it's just good to have you. Tell us a little bit about we'll give them. We're gonna sneak into giving them a little bit more sense of how this call is happening. But what do you remember about how me and you met, man?
About how we met, I remember being assigned to your class, and
Do better than that, bro. Just
No,
what
I'm
do
in the
you
seventh grade.
what do you remember for the seventh grade, man?
well, I'm just saying that's what I'm saying. This is my first experience in junior high school. You was my first, you know what I'm saying, math teacher, science teacher, and so the impression you gave us was you were young. So I'm like, this is a cool dude.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is gonna be all right. I'm not used to having young teachers, and you was fly. You had some flavor about yourself. He was a real cool dude. So I enjoyed being around you because you had good energy.
Yeah, and it was funny. I was sitting here trying to think, knowing that we were gonna have a conversation today. I was really trying to understand, when did we actually connect? Because I didn't connect with all my students the same way. But I don't know if it was because of your humor and your character in the classroom, or was it something on the yard? I don't know, because you always had a big, warm personality, and I don't really remember how we just kind of like started. Because I know at some point I would scoop you up, and we hung out outside of school, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't really remember how that went.
It started in the class because it just I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was just the energy. And then when you start seeing like my family dynamic, because I remember you meeting my father. He came up there,
Right.
and I know that had an impression on you, because I was thinking about that today. I remember talking too much in class. And you was like, you know what, I'm about to give your pops a call. And
Yeah.
I know the look on my face was like, man,
Yeah.
you ain't got to do that, man.
Yeah, because I remember your dad,
be
man.
cool, man.
I remember your dad because I learned a lot about him after later on in our relationship. But then your dad it was very few guys that were taller than me. And so when you're 6'2"
Right.
and you got somebody that's taller than you and also bigger than you, you kind of feel a little
Right.
you feel a kind of way, right? So I'm looking at this dude. I'm
Right.
like,
It's intimidating.
yeah, exactly. And I'm looking at this dude. I'm like, okay, this is how my boy's gonna look when he gets older.
This call
But
and
also,
your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
so if you don't know,
Right,
folks,
right.
if you don't know, folks, you kind of get in the sense of where we're talking from and where Caleb is calling me from, and you'll hear a little bit more about that. But anyway, so I get this feeling, right? And I'm like, this dude, he's the real deal, man. And he was a real nice dude. Although I didn't know anything about his background, but I also knew he was a dad that would check his young man and make sure that his young man had his head right for
Very
school.
serious dude.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
why.
didn't play.
That is wild. So then
very serious dude.
so your mom, your sisters, they would your grandma, you had a lot of women in your life that were really loving, man. Tell me a little bit about your mom, man.
Man, that's the best person I ever met, man. She was that was the dynamic in our household. So my father was the iron fist and my mother was the cushion. She was real nurturing, real loving, real protective. And so she was really, more than what she had to be because she had to kind of like balance that scale for it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, just very, concerned with us, made sure we had everything that we need, while he was still living. After he was gone, it was even, more so single mother, raising 3 children. So, she was just always making sure that she saw about us, no matter what it was, no matter what the, situation was, school closed, food, birthdays, holidays. She figured out a way. My grandmother too.
So slide
they
into.
always, supported us. And
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm just saying, my grandmother, she got that from my grandmother. My grandmother played a big role in our lives as well. So, that's just what our support system. That's what they was for.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. And I don't know if I ever met your grandma, but I just I just love your mom, and she's a very special lady. But moving forward, you talked about when your dad passed, right? And so what I remember is this: you were in the 7th grade with me, and then in the 8th grade I would see you. And I knew something was different in your world, but I really couldn't put a finger on it. And then I found out that your dad died. I think you said he had a heart attack or no, he had an ulcer.
Nah, he died. He had a bleeding ulcer.
Yeah.
Yeah, 38 years old, man.
So you, at that point, were you 13 or were you still 12?
I was 12.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit, man,
He
about.
passed in October 12, 1990.
Wow. It's funny because my dad passed in October, also October 11th, 2006. So I'm that October dates, they kind of stick with us. But as we think in terms of your dad, man, when your dad passed, I know a lot of things started shifting in your world. And I can only imagine, losing your dad as a middle school. How did that kind of change things for you, and how did that kind of impact you, man?
It was heavy. For one, it was devastating because he was a fairly young dude, 38 years old. That's pretty young.
Yeah.
And so to have somebody, like that in your immediate family that's there one day and literally gone the next day. He wasn't in the hospital, laid up on tubes and life support and sick and all that stuff. He was literally, I was in the house with him. I was the only one in the house with him when he passed.
Wow.
And so literally he was there one day and the next day, we go in the room and, it's over.
Yeah.
And so, I had big cousins, older cousins who was telling me, being the only boy, they like, now you got to be the man of the family. You got to see about your mother. You got to, watch out for your sisters. It's on you now. Your father gone. You got to do it. So that's where my mind shifted towards, okay, I got to step up. I got to, make sure I got to kind of sort of like fill the shoes, where my father left off.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because how does a kid do that? I mean, you just and it causes you to you don't, and it causes you to accelerate. Just growing up and how you think and what you're concerned about and worries. And I know that from that point it's wild because then you left Horace Mann. You went on and graduated from Horace Mann. And I need to say, man, you were a good student. You were squirrely, so you were the kind of kid that would get like a BSU, you know, because the cooperation grade, because you silly, you cracking jokes, but you were a smart kid. And so the question that I have is just this, man. How did that impact, you losing your dad? How did it impact, you in school? And then I wanna transition to what we're on the line to talk about in a second. But how did that impact you in school academically?
Honestly, when I think back about it, I wasn't able to concentrate after that. I don't know if it was just trauma or, what category to really put it in, whether it was just dysfunction emotionally, not being able to cope or not being able to just to like push through it, but I wasn't able to function and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't sit down and just do what I know I should have been doing. Something was like off balance with this side of myself and I couldn't handle it. So it just kept coming out in, my attendance at school. So now I'm getting suspended or whatnot because I'm not going. I'm actually at school, at the schools I was going to, but I wasn't going to class.
Gotcha.
I'm hanging out, because I couldn't sit down. I couldn't be still. So it's starting to come out in those ways, where I'm trying to figure out how to hold it together, and it was too much for me, man. It was too big for me.
Right, and at that point, your mom, yeah, I mean, by the time you were in high school, your mom hadn't remarried at that point, had she?
No, she got married in, I think, 94.
Okay.
I got to high school in 93.
Okay. So now we looking at a young man that's trying to figure out life and just kind of it's just a lot of stuff on his plate, right? So you and I are kind of out of touch a little bit. I had moved to Compton, and and we laughed. We laughed. I think the last time we talked, we laughed about one day when I'm driving in Compton on the morning on my way to work, and I'm seeing you near your high school, but you were going in the other direction. You remember that morning?
Yeah. And you pulled up, and when you stopped, I was walking, and you drove past, but you stopped, and you rolled down the window. You was like, "Ain't you going the wrong way?" And I looked like Mr. Early.
Yeah.
I mean, just never expected to see you, especially Compton early in the morning. I'm minding my business, whatever I was doing.
Yeah, because you didn't even know I lived in Compton all the while I was working at Horace Mann. I lived in Compton, so you didn't know that. Yeah, that's crazy.
I did not know that, man. And then we happened to have moved over there. Because when my father passed, we was living down the street from Horace Mann on 73rd and Norman.
Uh-huh.
So after he passed, we went to Inglewood, and then we went to Compton. So
got you.
We had a little journey, but yeah, no, I never expected to see you.
Yeah,
not like that anyway.
That was crazy, but it was good to see you, and we talked a little bit about sports, and I know that I don't know if you had gone to Westchester at that point, but we connected around that because that was my high school.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, I had already been to Westchester and got kicked out of there.
Yeah. So then fast forward a little bit. The next time I hear from you, and I'm gonna tee this up, because I want folks to hear this. Folks, right now, Caleb Harris III has been incarcerated for 29 years. He's been unjustly incarcerated for 29 years. He is you know what? Let me just stop right there. Caleb, tell us the story, man. What happened before you called me? How did the whole situation kind of go down? And then I got the call, and then we could talk more about about the situation later. But talk to me about where we are, and not where we are, where we were. I think you're 17 at this point.
Long story short, I'm living in Compton still. I still stay with my mother and my sister in Compton. My older sister moved to Hawthorne with her boyfriend, and so the building they live in has a swimming pool, and so I used to go over there and hang out with them, go swimming, play dominoes or whatever, and I met a group of people associated with him by going over there to visit them and just basically just hang out. It was just something to do. It was a nice environment. It wasn't no rough place to be. For one, this was Hawthorne, so it really wasn't no whole lot of stuff going on.
And it was Hawthorne in the '90s, so it was okay.
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
what I mean. It wasn't a terrible place.
Mm-hmm.
So you got knuckleheads doing stuff everywhere, but I didn't feel in danger. I didn't feel like it was too much going on. I'm over here just hanging out, and I had knew my sister's boyfriend for I guess 2 years now. We met him like 91, 92.
Okay.
And so, he was kind of sort of like a big brother type individual to me, so to speak. And so I'm just over here hanging out with them, and I met some dudes that was around my age that was hanging out in this apartment or, lived in this area. They was from Hawthorne. And I met a few dudes that was his age. I'm 17. These dudes was 24,
Okay.
between 24 and 30. So
Okay.
I met some dudes that was his age too. So I'm just hanging out.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's how I ended up out there. No,
Okay.
I'm just saying that's how I ended up out there.
All right. No. Okay. So
And
you
so
so you're
my
out there hanging
co-defendant,
out. Keep going.
and so my co-defendant is
Wait. You said
one of my
co-defendant.
sister's
You
boyfriends.
you said co-defendant.
Right.
Even before we get to
Right.
that co-defendant, can you walk us through? Because I want folks who are listening to understand the fullness of the case. All right. Can you walk us through what happened, and then, and you probably were about to do this anyway. What happened and how did you get caught?
Okay. So my co-defendant, which was my sister's boyfriend, I think they went to high school or whatever together. He was a few blocks down, a few blocks over, with two other people. One of the dudes' name is Charles. Charles lived in that building.
Okay.
It was him. His name is Dwayne. It was Dwayne, Charles, and Bob.
All right. We're gonna keep
They were
names.
standing
We're
in
gonna keep
front of this
names just
building.
like that. All right.
Cool.
Okay. Go ahead.
So they were standing in front of this building, talking amongst themselves. This young lady comes out of the building, and she starts arguing with Dwayne. So he whatever he said, I wasn't there. So I'm getting the story that they told. So he's getting into it with the girl, and as he's getting into it with her, her boyfriend comes out. This is a big dude. This dude, 6'4", probably almost 300 pounds. This is a big fella.
Okay.
He comes out and pulls a gun out. And so that shut everything down. So they was like, all right, man, cool, no problem, whatever. She was like, come on, baby, let's go back in. So that's supposedly it was all squashed right then and there. So later on that night, he goes back to get revenge against this dude. And that's what this case is about.
Mm.
So I didn't know her. I never met her. I didn't know her boyfriend. I'd never met her boyfriend. So I don't have anything to do with this. They both of them testified. Neither one of them ever said they knew me or I had anything to do with this either.
Now
I'm just making that clear though.
So you fast forwarded, and I need the folks who are listening to get a clear understanding. So let me take a step back. Had you been with those guys at all earlier that day, or no?
No. When they left that apartment, they came back to building where my sister and her boyfriend lived, and I saw them when they came back that morning. But they had already had that altercation with her and her boyfriend.
Okay, so it was what was the time frame between, like, what, like, was it like a morning and an evening and a morning? What was it?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what time they got into it with them, because he said once they got into it with them, he went into the building and went to Charles' apartment, and they hung out in Charles' apartment for a while.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly what time the initial altercation happened.
Okay.
But I saw him probably about between 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
When they came to the building where we were.
Okay, and this was after the altercation, after the initial altercation.
This is after. Yeah,
okay,
this is after.
so keep me going. So you saw him, you see him you see him after they come back. Now you're talking to them. Then where do we go from there? Because at this point, you haven't told me anything that's going to cause you to be arrested. I want to understand, help our listeners understand, how did we get to that point?
Well, so the crime happens that night. First, I left probably about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I left. I went back to Compton.
Okay.
So the crime happens around, I want to say 8:30ish that night.
After
so,
the altercation happens on day 1. You see them the morning of day 2. The crime occurs the evening of day 2.
No. This is all the same day. No. This is all the same day.
Oh, so the altercation occurs in the morning of day 1. You see them later
Yes.
on that morning of day 1, and then the crime occurs
Yes.
the evening of day 1.
Yes.
Okay, all right, keep going.
Okay, so that's January the 28th, 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So about a week or so later,
Wait, what's the crime, Caleb?
I'm over there
What's the
hanging out.
crime?
I heard about what happened or whatever.
No, Caleb. Tell us what's the crime, because folks listening, they need to understand what you've been accused of, and they need to be able to contextualize it.
Right. Absolutely. So what it is 2 Molotov cocktails were thrown into an apartment, and the guy that he had actually had the altercation with, he had left. So the only people that's in this apartment is the girl that he got into it with and her 2 children.
Okay.
So he was the
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I guess he knew he shouldn't have pulled the gun on this dude. Maybe he felt uncomfortable. Whatever the case may be, he left. So my co-defendant went over there to get the dude. The dude wasn't there, but he threw him. Nobody there but this lady and her 2 children.
Okay. And
A couple of months later, they passed away. She survived. She's still alive.
so the 2 children passed away.
Yes.
Okay. And then and the lady is still alive. So now talk to me. Okay, 2 children died. This and the other. That I still don't see. I draw for me the line in terms of how did you get arrested?
So about a week later, a dude named Eric, he comes walking up saying, "Hey man, the police want to talk to everybody. They trying to find out what happened over there, so on and so forth." So basically, it was me, my sister's boyfriend. It was probably about 3 or 4 people standing out here, and he was like, "Yeah, man, they want to talk to you." I'm like, "What they want to talk to me for?" He was like, "They want to talk to everybody, not just you. They just, your name came up. They want to talk to you." I'm like, "How would my name come up? It had nothing to do with that." He was like, "I'm just saying, man, they want to talk to me. I just left from over there. They said they want to talk to him, you, him." I'm like, "All right, cool, no problem, man. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to clear it up, make sure that they understand I didn't have nothing to do with it."
Go over
So
there
the
as
next
in
day,
to the
that was
police
the 7th.
station. Go over there to the police station.
Right, so that was the 7th.
Mm-hmm.
That was the 7th when I had that conversation with him.
Okay.
On the 8th, I went that morning. Like, "Hey, man, y'all looking for me?" They was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Hey, man, I didn't have nothing to do with that." They was like, "Well, come on in here, sit down, talk." They asked me how old I was. I told them I was 17. They didn't offer me no parent or no attorney or none of that. They just started basically just grilling me. I stayed in there from morning till probably about like 8, 9 o'clock at night. Off and on. They kept coming back questioning me off and on. Like, man, I didn't have nothing to do with it. I don't know them people that was involved with it. So I don't know how you're going to try to put this on me. Unbeknownst to me, the dude that had told everybody that they wanted to talk to everybody, he had told them that I was involved.
Okay.
I don't know this.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question has always been, why would he tell them that you was involved? The only answer I have ever come up with was he would have told them who was actually involved. He knew his life would have been in jeopardy for that. So that's the only conclusion I can come to as to
because you were the kid. Is that what
right.
and the rest of the cast, they okay. I understand. All right, so now, boom, I get a call. This is where I jump back in, right? I get a call, and this is you're in county at this point, and you're letting me know that you've been arrested. You explained to me almost verbatim what you just shared with me. I think you gave a few more details right now, but almost verbatim. And this was 29, almost 30 years ago. All right. And you're telling me this story and you're like, "Hey, Mr. Early, boom, boom, from county, this, that, and the other." So then I have a friend at that point who is a public defender. I call her, we try to get some information and Now, how long had you been in county? Had you been in county for a couple of years when you called me, or I'm trying to remember because I know you got arrested at 17, but by the time we talked the first time, about how old were you?
I probably was 19.
I was thinking that. Okay.
I probably was 19 because I remember I think her name was Winnie. I remember trying to figure out if I could get her to take this case, and I believe that was like going into my third trial.
Okay. So
And
third
so
trial. Stop
I would have
right
been
there.
about
Stop right there.
19.
You typically when
Okay.
somebody commits a crime, all right? Typically when they commit a crime,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
it doesn't take 3 trials for them to get prosecuted. How in the heck did you end up with
No.
a third trial? Tell us about that.
My first trial ended in the hung jury. My first trial, that's when the lady's boyfriend testified because he didn't come back. He said his life was in jeopardy of testifying against us. But he testified in the first trial, and they asked him about what happened. He said he pulled the gun on my co-defendant and all of that stuff. They said, well, what about him? He said, no, I don't know him. This don't have nothing to do with him. This is about him. Talking about my co-defendant. That's
Okay.
my first trial.
Okay.
But it was two people in my first trial that said that I had made the cocktails, right?
Two
I had
people-
a hung
two-
jury. They
two-
impeached
two
me.
people witnesses?
First, let me make that clear. That's
No.
super important.
No. Two people
it's super very
witnesses.
important that I make this clear.
Are you?
Say again?
I said 2 people witnesses that said that you made, or 2 people on the jury.
No, 2 witnesses.
Okay, got it. All right. Now go ahead.
So let me make this clear to you, though, because this is super very important. From my first trial to my second trial to my third trial, everybody who implicated me in this case was impeached for lying. There is no one who testified against me that wasn't impeached for lying. So I need to make that clear to everybody that's interested in what's going on here.
Okay.
There is no credible evidence against me, period. And I have proof of that when we get near the end of this conversation.
Okay.
But I just wanted to make that clear at this moment.
All right.
Everybody who testified against me was impeached for lying.
Okay.
Because the lies was proven. So that's important to me that that's clear.
Okay. Excellent.
But I had a
Um,
hung jury. A4 in
You have 60 seconds remaining.
my first trial ended in a hung jury. A4 in my favor. I'm thinking it's over because I almost won. The judge sent them back in there like 6 times. I'm thinking they finna just leave me alone. But they
Stop right there, man, because we're
to the
gonna
second trial.
we're gonna pick up from right here, okay? But we know first trial, boom, 8-4. You're thinking that they about to clear my name, I'm gonna be okay, and that's what we're gonna pick up on our next
Right.
call. All right, good deal. Call me right back.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, folks. So as we're listening to this journey of Caleb Harris III, the part that is amazing to me is that from day one, the same story you're hearing, it's pretty much the story I heard, and nothing has changed. And you can listen to it. You can listen to it, and you're thinking. Hopefully, you're thinking like I'm thinking. Is that there's a flaw with the legal system at this point? But you're going to hear something else when he talks about his second and third trial, and then the appeals and the various different things that we've been kind of dealing with for the last, I guess, the last 20 years, or if not the last 25 years. You're going to hear a bit more of what's going on, and I just hope that 2 things happen. One, it's time for this young man to come home. But the other thing is just this: it's time for our system to stop putting young men, particularly young black men, in jail without just cause. Now, you might say everybody in jail says that they're innocent. Well, they might say that. I'm not saying that there's not people in jail who are not guilty of the crime that they've been convicted of. I believe that there are many people in jail that are convicted of the crime that are convicted, that are guilty of the crime they've been convicted of. However, right now, this young man right here, and I can name several other young men, we see them in the newspaper all the time, that spend 10, 20, 30 years in prison, and then they get exonerated, if you will, because the evidence never held up. There was never any evidence by which they were prosecuted. And here's the problem. I'm gonna stop right here, and I'll pick up. But understand this: we got work to do to get this young man out, but we also got work to do on our legal system and how justice is meted out in the United States of America. Hold on, folks. So trial number 1, 8-4 hung jury in your favor. Pick us up from there.
Trial number 2. This is where the prosecution proved my innocence. Trial number 2. He brought 3 witnesses that wasn't in the first trial. That this is what they testified to. No, 4. Excuse me, 4. One witness testified to before the crime was committed, which the court report at her apartment is where the Molotovs were made and all of that stuff. She said I wasn't out there. She said she never saw me out there that evening. There was a eyewitness to the crime who said that she saw the people who committed the crime. She was on the way into the building to visit her son. She said, and I'm gonna tell you this here. I'm shaking like I'm nervous. I don't know this lady. I never saw this lady. She said I saw the people commit the crime. In my heart, I said they put somebody up here to frame us, man. This is what I'm thinking. That they put somebody on this witness stand to frame us, man. The DA said, can you point out who you saw commit the crime? She said, him right there. She pointed to my co-defendant. I'm like, oh my God. She said, what about him? She said, no, I don't recognize him from being there, but he did it. I was like, oh my God. And then they asked her, they said, how can you be sure? She said, I've been knowing him for 7 years. He knew the lady.
Wow.
And they said, are you sure that he wasn't with him? She said, no, I don't recognize him from being with him. It was somebody else. She described a totally different person. That's during the crime. After the crime, it was this dude, we found out actually in this trial, this dude was a police informant for 7 years. We know him, his name is Maurice. We know him by Smokey. The lady who this crime was committed against, this is one of her friends. He said everybody that committed that crime, they came to my house after. He named my co-defendant. He named the dude that they said drove. He named the other dude that was with him. They said, what about Mr. Harris? He said, no, he wasn't with him. He said, but he came, and the other 2 dudes, they came to my house after this crime was committed. So this is what I'm telling you right now. These are all prosecution witnesses before the crime, during the crime, and after the crime. And they all said that I wasn't with these dudes that committed this crime. Now, you have their star witness. He testified in my 2nd trial and again in my 3rd trial. This is another kicker. The star witness. He said the 2 dudes that said he made the cocktails, he said he didn't make the cocktails. He said the 2 dudes that said he did, they the ones that made them. That's another kicker. So now we got a district attorney witness pointing a finger at other district attorney witnesses. He said, no, he didn't make the cocktails. They lied on him. He said, them dudes made them. I'm just laying the case out for you. Everything I'm telling you is on record. I'm sure it's public record, but it can be checked. So can't nobody say I made it up. I put a spin on it. It's all on record. The DA proved my innocence for me, man, in my 2nd trial. Now, the way that outcome was, another hung jury, my co-defendant get found guilty. I go to my 3rd trial by myself. Now, this is when I knew the fix was in. The first thing they did was they switched the DA. I knew something fishy was happening when they did that. They switched the DA. The next thing they did was they switched how they argued against me for this case. First, they tried to make it I'm the one that committed the crime. All of their witnesses saying that I didn't. So now that's when they started arguing, aiding and abetting against me. They just trying to mix me in some way, somehow. And they charged me with aiding and abetting. So aiding and abetting means you don't have to actually be the one to go commit the crime, but you had something to do with it. So I knew the fix was in when all of these changes started taking place. After they put the case on, now it's the defense turn. My lawyers stand up and say, we rest on the state of the evidence. Mr. Early, did you hear what I said?
Yeah, I remember when you told me that. I mean, he did not argue a case at all.
Are you listening to me right now?
Yeah, yeah.
A lawyer stand up and say we rest on the state of the evidence when in my second trial, the prosecution just gave you my innocence before the crime, during the crime, and after the crime. And you don't put these witnesses on the stand to prove my case. And he can't argue against them because they his witnesses. They just help him convict my co-defendant. So he can't argue against these people. He got to sit there and listen to everything they got to say, and he got to keep his mouth shut.
So now
what can he do?
Here's my question, man.
And my lawyer don't give me a defense.
So if
how do you not give me a defense when he gave you all the witnesses to call?
So pause right there, Caleb. If I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this, I'm like, this is freaking ridiculous. I'm watching the people in the room with me right now. They're like, this is wild, right? But here's the question that I would ask.
Everything I'm telling you is in black and white. You can check it.
I read it. You already.
I would never lie to you.
You know, your mother gave that to me years ago. I read some of the stuff, right? And I shared it. You know.
That's what I'm saying.
But here's the question for you. Here's the question.
Everything I'm saying can be verified.
Here's my question though. If you
Lay it on.
know that this guy, and I want you to be brutally honest, you know that this guy is not representing you correctly, why didn't you say anything at that point? And I want you to.
My first time in jail. I'm finna give it to you the way that I can remember.
Go for it.
I just got through going through 2 trials with this dude. You know what I mean? So it's like I feel like I got a little lightweight connection with the dude, but never in a million years do I think after the DA gave us all these witnesses. Never in a million years do I think that, and mind you, let me give you more context about what happened. The lady who...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Her daughter was with her. Her daughter was probably about...
Wait. You cut off. We didn't hear that. The lady who what? The lady who what?
The lady who saw the crime committed?
Okay, good. Go ahead.
She had her little girl with her. Her little girl might have been about 7 or 8 years old, something like that.
That's the one that was going to visit her son, right?
She comes to this... Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
She had a little girl with her. She comes to the second trial as well, and they gave her 6-packs and different things to look at pictures. She didn't identify nobody, and so that's what she testified to. Basically, she couldn't point nobody out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll bring up that to say, now in my third trial, this is how you know it's a bamboozle. In my third trial, this little girl is sitting at the table with us. So I'm just knowing we're about to start calling our witnesses, you feel me?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting here like, yeah, it's our turn now. The man stand up, man, and say, we rest on the state of evidence.
So the little girl was with her mom, could have testified. He didn't even call her. Is that what I'm understanding? Caleb, did I lose you?
Yes.
Okay. And that's
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So at that point, he says he rests on the state of the evidence, which is a horrible decision that he made.
How?
A 29-year take your life away kind of decision that he made. What at that point? So then they come back with a guilty verdict.
Yeah. So let me speak to that. Now, this is a fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is all one crime.
Mm-hmm.
They find me guilty of the 2 murders and not guilty of the attempt. How is that possible?
Yeah.
It's all one crime. In my mind, because the lady got on the witness stand and said, I don't know this dude. I've never seen him in my life. I think that's why they found me not guilty of that. I mean, I don't know. I know the law says that if the evidence is the same for all the charges, the verdict has to be the same for all the charges. They should have found me not guilty flat out, which brings me to my most important point about this case. So we filed a retrial motion. The judge denied it. And so when he sentences me, the DA is asking for life without.
Life without parole, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
This is also on record, so you can read it for yourself. The judge says there's no evidence that he committed this crime. He said, and I agree with the jury, that he had no intent for anybody to be hurt or killed. The judge.
Mm-hmm. So.
Now, I've watched a ton of Dateline, 48 Hours, things like that, right?
Yeah.
I have never in my life heard a judge say, after a person was convicted, that there's no evidence that this person committed this crime. I've never heard that.
And
I've seen a ton of people who went to trial in these 29 years. I've never even heard one of these people say that.
So help the layman, the people like me that don't understand the legal system. Help us understand that once the jury has come back with a verdict, the judge can feel a certain kind of way about the verdict, but he can't overturn the verdict.
No, he can. He absolutely can.
So why didn't he?
But this is Torrance Court. This is Torrance Court. And, maybe he would have done it for somebody else. He didn't do it for me.
Okay.
But just based on the fact that he...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
The fact that he chose to speak this into the record.
And it's in the record. What he said is in the document.
He committed this crime. Absolutely. It's in my sentencing transcripts.
Wow.
Because the DA is trying to give me life without parole, and the judge is basically like, man, there ain't even no evidence that this dude did this. And you want to give him the worst sentence possible.
Yeah.
That was basically how he was, expressing himself like, listen, man, and I agree with the jury. These are the judge's words. And I agree with the jury, Judge Hollingsworth, that he had no intent for anyone to be hurt or killed. This is the judge. So, like you say, as a layman, as a normal person that's not familiar with the law, let me explain this to you all. So, though you need certain elements to even establish a murder, a first-degree murder. For one of them, you had to do it yourself. If you didn't do it yourself, they have to at least establish conspiracy, you know what I mean? Something. They got to establish that you did something, some way, somehow. This man said, I didn't even have intent. Intent is how you get to murder. That's the difference between murder, manslaughter, assault with a deadly weapon. That's how you establish that. If you kill somebody, just in a heated argument, you don't even know this person, he push you push him back, you pull out a gun and kill him, they're supposed to give you a manslaughter for that. Because it happened so spur of the moment that it's not a murder because it wasn't first degree, you didn't plan it, so on and so forth.
Crime of passion, something like that.
Intent is huge. Right, I'm saying intent is huge.
So
that's the difference between getting a manslaughter, which doesn't carry a life sentence, and getting a murder. Intent.
So let's pick up here, man, because it's a lot more that I want to get to, and I don't even know if we're gonna get through it all in this show. We may have to have you come back, but this is what I want. So now you and I'm gonna use the words of Malcolm X. You've been bamboozled. All right, they didn't railroaded you, and now you've been convicted. All right, you get into this now, and this is the wild part. I need us to understand that a little bit of your past. You talked about you had gotten kicked out of a couple schools, this, that, and the other. But from my understanding, Caleb, you had never ever been arrested or had anything to do with police in terms of any kind of law enforcement, any kind of infraction, anything like that. Am I correct?
I had a runaway.
Wait.
I had a runaway. This is my entire history.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give you my entire history.
And tell me the age.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Hold on.
A runaway.
Hold on to that thought because we got to reset this. So when you come back, you gonna tell me your history, and then you're gonna tell me the age, okay? And then we want to get into where we are now and how do we move forward, okay?
Let's do it.
All right, call me right back. All right, we're back, Caleb. So we have about 15 more minutes left to have this conversation, and I want to tee it up because so you're in jail. We talk periodically, hit and miss, and then we get back in touch. And it's funny how God's timing is serendipitous. And typically, we've been talking, and I've been very remiss in terms of us praying before our shows, but it's always obvious that God is just kind of working and just kind of teaching us through this process. But one of the things that happened was we talked periodically, and around the same time, I was working at Loyola Marymount University, and I sat in a meeting because we were doing some work with a restorative justice project, right? And that was when RJ was really just kind of coming on the scene in the school districts and in the public sector, but it had already been something that was happening in the prison systems. This whole conversation around restorative justice. And if you don't know anything about it, I would encourage all of you to kind of research that. But Caleb, at this point, I'm sitting in this meeting. This guy by the name of Frankie. Frankie had just gotten released, and he had gotten released for a crime that he had not committed. And I think Frankie had done like maybe 19 years, right? And so what happened is that he got connected with the Loyola Innocence Project. At that point, I call your mom.
Right.
I'm like, hey, you know what? We need to start talking to them as it relates to, Caleb's case and stuff like that. That was probably about, 12, 13 years ago?
Yes, a long time ago.
Yeah, it's
They've
been
been having my case now for about 12 years, so that was probably about 13 years ago.
Okay. So now, with that right there, talk to us about what has happened with your case since LMU got involved. Well, Loyola Law School, because they're not LMU. Loyola Law School got involved, and then the other things that have happened with your case, where we are now, and then how do we move forward?
Okay, so long story short, like I said, they've been having my case for like 12 years now. So initially, it started off with just a pure fight for my innocence. Then throughout the years, like the past 5, 6 years, a lot of laws start changing, and quite a few of these laws apply to me. So you had like the juvenile. There was some stuff that came out about juveniles. If you was under 18, you should be able to be resentenced and considered and so on and so forth. So they started looking into other things. The most impactful would be a law called SB 1437, which it's the new felony murder rule. It says if you are not the actual killer or a major participant, then you shouldn't have the time of the actual killer. And you got to be resentenced to whatever the other underlying charges are. So they filed that for me, I want to say in 2019. And you have to go back to your trial court. You can't just file it in any court you want to. So they filed it in 2019. Of course, Orange Court, the lady, she denied it. Just flat out. So we appealed it. That took a couple of years because there were other cases pending that this case was based on. And the appellate court granted it. The California Supreme Court granted it. Sent me back down with instructions to the same court, same judge. She denies it again. This lady refuses to adhere to the law.
And this is in the record, right?
They order me. Absolutely.
Keep going.
Yeah, without question.
Keep going.
And so they ordered me an evidentiary hearing. Basically to look at the evidence in the case to see if this applies to me or not. The lady did not allow me to call any witnesses. Basically didn't give me a complete hearing, and I knew that when she stood on it, because when my attorney and the district attorney finished talking, she had already had her decision written down. She just started reading it. So before she even heard the argument on both sides, she had already had her decision made. So, that's a hard court to get fairness in, man. And so right now we're appealing her not giving me a proper hearing, her ignoring the law. So we're appealing that. And all of the paperwork between our side and the Attorney General was in on January 23rd, I believe. So we've been waiting all this time to get a date to hear oral arguments. And, I know a couple of judges retired from the second district in the appellate level or whatever, but we've just been waiting all this time to get date for oral arguments, and like I said, that was way back in January.
Now that judge in Torrance,
Yeah,
what's
so,
her name? What's her name? The judge in Torrance?
Her name is Laura Ellison.
Is she still on the bench?
Yeah. So yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now here's
my actual Ennis petition went in front of her, and then this went in front of her. She just, she shooting everything down, man.
Okay. So
every time we go, everywhere we go, every time we go, we highlight what the judge said about there's no evidence that this man committed this crime or had any intent for anything to happen. They just dismiss that. They ignore that like they didn't even hear that and just keep going. This judge saw all of the witnesses, heard all of the evidence, and his fact-finding conclusion is I didn't commit the crime. Or at least there's no evidence that I committed this crime. And that's supposed to be the standard in trial court. The standard is the burden of proof is on the district attorney, and you have to be found guilty beyond all reasonable doubt. Proof beyond all reasonable doubt.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
You know what's interesting, Caleb?
What am I doing in the penitentiary?
Well,
Let me ask you this question real quick, please. Why am I here? If the judge say that there's no evidence that I committed this crime, and the standard is proof beyond all reasonable doubt, why am I here? Go ahead, though.
No. I was looking, and we had some of our researchers taking a look at some things, and it's saying that this judge, her tenure ends in January 2025. So January 6th, 2025.
Praise God.
So yeah. So even if even if they send you back there, she won't be sitting on that bench at that point. Hopefully.
Praise God.
All right. So.
But everything I'm telling you, like I'm saying, everything I'm telling you is in the record. I'm not telling you nothing that's not in the record.
And really, you're not telling this for me because your mom has sent me a lot of stuff, man. And so I've been able to kind of read some stuff, right, and do some more research on my own. So I know, but we're having this conversation that folks beyond us can know. Let me say this, man, outright. 'Cause I know you're very appreciative of the work that the Loyola law students have done on your behalf.
Absolutely.
But what is the challenge with when what's the challenge that you've experienced with them being law students addressing this versus having a full-time lawyer on your case?
Well, one of the big differences is I had to humble myself and understand that this is a school, and so they're teaching fundamentals. They're not teaching savvy and how to really make moves. They're teaching fundamentals. By the book. This is the process. This is how you handle it. This is what you go through. Because the reason that I say that is because a friend of the family, he had the same type of case, and he was denied. It's 1437. He was denied. He didn't even wait until they tried to send him to the appeal court. He filed a writ of mandate. He's been on the streets now for about 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And so when you have a lawyer that's savvy, that knows the in and outs of the courts and how to do things, how to combat when they do something, how to respond, then you have things, where you can just get different movement. I love Loyola. I don't ever want anybody to think that I don't, but it's challenging that, they can only have people on your case while school is in session. I've had a lot of kids graduate while they was fighting my case. I've had kids move on, go to other places while they was fighting my case. So it's like just the constant attention. But to have somebody that will actually go to the district attorney's office, not going to do and say, hey, man, let's sit down and have a conversation.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I got something I want you to take a look at, man. That's what a lawyer with some chops, that's what he can do. He can go sit down, have that conversation. Right now, we've been trying to call up there to the school, and I guess students don't start coming back in until September sometime.
Exactly.
So that's like July, we really wasn't getting nobody. August, you may hit and miss and catch somebody, but it's like I'm really not going to be able to get somebody constantly that I can reach out to, communicate with until semester starting again.
Okay.
And then, if they graduate, then that's over. Then it's new. So I'm saying that part of the process is challenging. It's hard, man.
Okay.
When you got a lawyer, because that's like, I don't even know if you're familiar with this, but the dude, Gascon, the DA over LA, he came in and he was about to make these changes, do these things. He had a directive for if you was a juvenile, when you was arrested, if you wasn't the actual killer, he came in with all of this stuff. My mother, you already know, my mother reached out to him. Everybody been calling me, reaching out. It's not even no movement over there.
Yeah.
But I'm saying if I had a lawyer that would go knock on that door like, hey, man, this dude is innocent, but at least re-sentence him and let him go. You got directives where you can do that.
Right.
If I had a lawyer that would, have that conversation, pull up on him, man, talk to him.
Right.
Show him the paperwork. Show him what the judge said. Show him that everybody who testified against me was impeached for lying. So there is no credible evidence against me, no eyewitness, no motive, no physical evidence, no nothing. Show him that. Just so somebody can take a look at it and be like, hey, this is unjust, man. We can't just leave this dude like this. At least,
right.
Cut him some slack, give him a deal, re-sentence him something. Don't just leave it like that.
And I would say this. I know you're ready to come home, but a deal wouldn't be fair to you because a deal would say that you did something that you didn't do. And so, and I understand that, and I fully get it, But the reality is just this: either resentence him or declare his innocence and release him. One of the two. One of the two, man. Yeah, man. So we
at
only
this point in the game, just to
go ahead.
Just to be fair with you, my grandmother passed away. That broke my heart. That crushed me. I mean, if you could destroy a human being, that's what happened to me. My mother's 70, trying to get out of here.
Understand, brother. No, you're okay. You're okay, man.
Yeah.
And I'm and I'll say this.
One more thing before we go.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead. It's your time.
I would just say that young people think life is about certain things, and it's not about none of those things. And hopefully they can realize that before it costs me too much. It costs too much. Life is precious. Time is precious. You just don't want to ruin your life, your situation for the people around you for nothing. It's not worth killing for. It's not worth dying for. And it's not worth living for. A lot of those things are nothing. So
You have 60 seconds remaining.
be careful, mindful. Old people know some stuff that they're talking about. Listen to the people who made the mistakes. They know. Learn from them so you don't got to go through it. Hey, man, I love you. I appreciate you. And, man, God bless everybody in there that support this, man. Thank everybody, man. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, brother. And we're going to keep on doing what we need to get you home, man. Yeah, I love you, man. And we'll talk real soon. Man.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story, man. Thank you for, more importantly, sharing your life. And so we
thank you.
we're gonna get this pumped out far and wide, man, so that I'm just trusting God that we're gonna see some movement, man. We're gonna see some movement, brother.
Right.
All right, brother. So
thank you.
So
everybody.
We'll talk. Give me a call when you can give me a call, and then we'll pick up on this end, man. But I love you, Caleb, and we'll talk to you soon. Yeah, folks. That ain't easy for me. This is a guy that I've known since he was a kid, a guy that I love. a guy that that God has allowed me to see where his heart is, but it's also a guy who has just been disserved by our legal system. I don't know what to say, but I know this. I know that many of us who will listen to this podcast are familiar with stories similar to this, and we got to do something to change this. It's about Caleb coming home. It's about other folks who have not been treated justly, about them getting home. But more importantly, it's about fixing a system that is obviously broken. Some folks would sit here and say, well, you don't want law and order. You just want to let criminals go free. That's not the conversation here. We want free men to go free. We want folks to get. I don't even know how to state it, but we want folks to get equal justice under the law. We want folks to have it. We don't want it to be because someone has more money and can get the right type of representation that they get better served by a legal system than those who don't and are marginalized and the disenfranchised. We want to see this, as Dr. King said, we want to see America just be true to what they said on paper. Promote the general welfare, liberty and justice for all. This is a conversation about who we are, who we've been, and who we're going to be as a people. Thank you for listening. And remember Caleb in your prayers and in your push. Grace and peace, folks.